Unbound Woman podcast. I am your host, Niamh Ryan, a feminine embodiment and sexual empowerment coach. And I am here to bring you to a deeper level of desire, pleasure, intimacy, and love in your life. Through the methods of somatic work, sensuality work, sexuality, pleasure, and learning to use your voice, I help you come home to your body and find those deeper connections for yourself. On this podcast, we're going to talk about so many different topics, from boundaries to consent, to sexuality, to sensuality, to finding out what your pleasures are, and on the way, help you to become the unbound woman that you were here to be. We will also have special guests on talking about their unbound woman journey and what it means to them to be an unbound woman. So, grab a glass of red wine or a cup of cacao, sit on the couch, light yourself some sensual incense and listen in. And I can't wait to see you in the next episode. And welcome back to the Unbound Woman podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today and in my new little podcast studio. Obviously you've probably seen parts of it before, but it's all finally come together. We've had a little bit of a change, so it makes me feel really good. It's beautiful for like just the springtime that we have now and everything that's going on energetically, that I now have this perfect little space to record and to just show up in, and it just lights me up and it makes me feel so juicy. So I hope everybody is doing well. We have just come through a massive eclipse season, an energetic season that has just been insane for anyone who's been going through it. And today the podcast is actually about upping your standards, stripping back what no longer serves you, setting boundaries, and making decisions, making aligned decisions. And the reason this has come through is that it's not only just happened for me recently, but it's also happened for a lot of people and women I've been speaking to as well. And I can imagine this isn't just in the collective with women, but also with men. So I have a few little points here today so I don't get run off, because as you know, I can end up on a rant anywhere. But I really wanted to speak about these points today. And yeah, so first I'm going to start off with the energy and why the energy has been so interesting over the last few weeks. So we have gone from the end of an astrological new year into a brand new astrological year at the start of April, and we hit Aries energy. When we hit that, we also then went into a lunar eclipse, which then ended last week on the 8th on the new moon as a solar eclipse. So we had 2 weeks of eclipse energy. And then while we were in that lunar and solar eclipse energy, we also hit Mercury retrograde. So what that means is that there has been a lot of turbulence for people right now. And I personally believe that we can go through astrological heavy energy periods like this and not necessarily be fully impacted to such a large extent. It's about being aware of the energy but not allowing it to rule you. But we can also use it to propel us forward, right? Even in these times where, like with Mercury retrograde, we're seeing a lot of different things happening in the world with communication, with technology. Obviously it was in the sign of Aries as well, which means that was also having an impact, because Aries is the sign of war, right? So we're having a lot that's coming up there, and rather than allowing it to derail us, it's about acknowledging that it exists and continuing on, but also making decisions about, like, is this the proper time for me to launch something new? Is this the time for me to start a new routine? And if it does, am I aligned with the fact that it could feel a little harder in the last few weeks? What I have really noticed with the energy that came in was that it came up a lot around boundaries, alignment, decision making. They were the 3 topics that I really found came up. And what all 3 of these actually meant was auditing your life. So we've come into that spring Easter energy, right? This new energy. So if you think of the seasons, your menstrual cycle, flowers, we seeded stuff back in autumn before everything passed away, died away. We then had all winter to fertilize ourselves, to nurture ourselves, to begin to grow our roots. And we are now sprouting. We are now seeing new flowers coming out in the world. The trees are blossoming, and we're getting prepared for summer. So this can still be a very slow process, but what it is we're also 3 months into the kind of the Victorian calendar year as well. So we've also hit the first quarter of the year. And what I have done for myself and what I've asked my clients to do is like an audit of your life. So an audit of your life from, if you didn't do one before January, let's do it for the whole last year. If you did one in January, it's about re-auditing and seeing what is actually working and what isn't. Now this might sound very masculine, and you know, I'm all about feminine energy and all of that kind of thing. However, we need the masculine energy to thrive, okay? And I know for a lot of women, your relationship with your masculine probably hasn't been very good since you've maybe stepped out of corporate, or since you found the spiritual community, since you started doing work on yourself. And it's almost like we have a fear of wanting to go into the masculine energy again. And what I'm going to say to that is that actually, for the feminine to thrive, we need our masculine energy. We need to create a container so that she doesn't become chaotic in it. So like when we feel into the feminine energy, for a lot of people, we feel like flowing and creativeness and lots of rituals, and that's beautiful. But what happens if we do that every day? We don't take any action. We don't put ourselves out there. We just wait and wait and wait and wait and wait to receive, but we're not taking any aligned action. We're not looking at our lives. We're not even sure if it actually fills us up. And this is the piece for me that really, I feel like for a lot of time on my journey was missing. And I was always told that I had to be more of my feminine energy, like always hearing that. And I was like, but I am resting and I am doing rituals and I'm doing all the things that they've told me to do. The problem was I wasn't connected with it. And what was happening was I was just adding to it and I was just doing it all the time. And I decided to bring in this practice of auditing my life, and I do it once every 3 months at least. I try and do it once a month as well, but specifically once every 3 months. And the idea of auditing my life is like, I go through every aspect of my life, including my bank account. And I'm like, what do I no longer need? What isn't serving me? What's not bringing me joy? What is something that I can change, or how can I change doing that? So we think about like our wardrobe, right? So you have your wardrobe there and it's jam full packed with things. We're coming into spring, eventually summer. You're not just going to pile in all this clothing on top of your winter clothing, because it's going to be no room. You can't see what you have, you're missing things get lost, everything looks crumpled and doesn't really look fresh. So what you do is you remove the stuff from winter. Okay, they're not serving me now. They might serve me next season, they might not, but I'm going to clear them out. And this is the same idea. So for me, I've really sat with, over the last few days, like, and the last few weeks even, is like auditing that part of my life. And I audited my bank accounts. I try and do that monthly anyway, but I audited like, what subscriptions do I have that I'm not using? What's coming in that I don't know about? Like, the more information that I have, the more I can flow, because I'm aware of what's coming in and what's going out and where it's going. Then we also have, you know, your life. So like, you are doing steps every day. What is bringing you pleasure and what isn't? So for me right now, a lot of the time, eating well, allowing myself to feel good, looking after myself, that makes me feel good. Maybe not in the moment. There are certain times in the month where I'm like, I couldn't give a fuck if this was a salad or somebody dumped a fish and chips in front of me or a kebab. Like, you're just in that mood and it's like really hard to stay aligned with what you want. But again, I'm looking at the long-term goal, and I know, everybody just heard the word goal and went, oh my God, no, that's so masculine. It's not. Having a goal and being able to drive yourself towards it is really important, because we know then how to align ourselves. If you're just constantly going, oh, I'm just going to align with whatever, are you ever progressing? Are you ever making moves? Are you ever expanding your business, right? Or expanding in the world that you want to expand in? So I set like little goals, right? And they're not stuck. Like, if I get to a certain point of the year and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to hit that right now, but like, let's move that 6 months, or let's move that in 3 months. I'm okay with that as well. Like it's not part of my identity. It's something I'm choosing to do, and I enjoy the process. So it's this idea of like looking at the goal and being like, okay, well, is this still aligned for me? Well, yeah, it's about my health. So this eating well, looking after my body, it is serving me. So what's the next step I can take? Well, for me, I've joined the gym again. I stepped into the gym and I'm like, for the first time in years, it feels so nourishing to be back and not feel like I'm scared my eating disorder is going to come back, or I'm scared that it's not going to work for me. I'm just going because it makes me feel good. And it's a bit of discipline in my day. You then want to audit like around your relationships. Who are you allowing to overstep boundaries? Is it clients? Is it friends? Is it partners? Is it family members? Audit that part of your life too. Like, is there a conversation that you need to be having with friends? Is it like a conversation like, hey, I'm really busy at the moment. Like, it's not that I'm ignoring you. I love you. I just right now don't have space. Or it is, you know, if you find that somebody's being dishonest, to say to yourself, well, is this what I truly want in my life? And then resetting your boundaries with yourself and with others. Now, you don't have to go and tell them, but it's about saying to yourself, right, well, I've allowed this person to continuously overstep my boundary, so I'm gonna slowly start putting that back into place for myself. I'm not available for this anymore, and putting in those energetic notions of like, I'm not available anymore. This then comes to the bare minimum. So when you do all of this auditing in different parts of your life, so I do like buckets, I call them buckets of life, and I think I spoke about this back in January in my New Year's episode. And what I would say is that you're re-looking at these buckets, seeing if everything still aligns for you, and if it doesn't, we need to start looking at what is your bare minimum. Like, what is the bare minimum that you're going to tolerate from friends, from family, from your business, from yourself, most importantly, from your relationships, from your connection with your body? Like, what's the bare minimum you're willing to accept? And a lot of people, when I say this, get really activated, because the idea of setting a bare minimum with yourself means that you have to look at how you are speaking to yourself, how you are showing up for you, how you are aligned with yourself. And this can be really, really activating. And when we look at our bare minimums, we then also have to look at raising our standards. So like the bare minimum is like, this is the bare minimum of effort I'm willing to put in for myself, but I need to be accepting more than that. I need to be running at a higher standard. And this is about looking at the woman you want to be in 6 months. What is she doing? What's her bare minimum for herself? What is she aligned with? What decisions is she making? We're going to get to that in a second. What does her days look like? How did she show up in these 6 months to become her? What was she doing? And again, I'm very aware that this probably doesn't sound very feminine energy, but it is, because when we create a container of understanding where we want to go, we can use pleasure and our eros and our joy and our happiness to then move and to make it feel good. Because when we align with something, it makes us feel good. It brings us joy. It brings us happiness. It brings us pleasure. So when you know what that is, whereas like if you're endlessly just self-pleasuring and it's not getting you anywhere, or it's not, you're not sure why you're doing it, you're just doing it, eventually we numb to that. Like, we can't help it, because it becomes something that we're just using to avoid showing up in adult life, and we are adults. And this isn't to say that that woman in 6 months' time doesn't do her own washing, doesn't cook her food, doesn't clean her house. She probably still does, but what it means is that we can forego the mundane activities because we live more of our life in pleasure. When you're doing mundane activities, they feel more exciting when you've been in pleasure, when you've been doing things that make you feel good. So like the last few days, I've been feeling really amazing. Have been for a week or two, and like I'm just cleaning. Like I'm just moving shit around. I'm like, I want to do this, this, and this, and these have to go, that has to go. and I'm making space for other things, and I'm cleaning the house, and it feels good to me because I'm in that space of pleasure and enjoyment, because I've audited myself and I'm like, this is the bare minimum I'm going to accept for myself, and I'm going to accept for my relationships and for my business and for my clients. And then, as I said, like, we're raising our standards to be that woman in 6 months' time. Who is she? What is she doing? What's her sex life like? What's her everyday connection to her body? How does she feel about herself? Because we don't talk about this enough in business, in spirituality, and it's all like, I'm just going to lie here in my feminine energy and everything's going to come to me. And of course it is. But that's like saying you've started a business, you aren't showing up on Instagram, you have maybe a website page kind of done up that you don't advertise, you don't show up, you don't talk about your business, like, and then being like, so where is it? Where are all my clients? And it's like, that's not realistic. That doesn't exist. And maybe it does for somebody, and fair fucks to you, but for a lot of us, that's not what's happening. However, me showing up on Instagram and speaking my truth, me providing links to people and a space where they can come in and see what I offer, for them to fill in, for me to show up and talk about certain offers, for me to have a mailing list, I can send that out and then just sit back and receive. I've taken an aligned action. That person might not click into my first 100 emails they receive, but one day they click into it and they go, oh, okay. Or they see something on Instagram and they're like, oh my God, I need to work with her. I have provided the space, I have opened the channel, I've opened myself up to receiving, and I'm like, okay, here you go. But I did that through taking the aligned action, to showing the universe that I want this, that I am here for it, that I've created the container that I can hold. This is the same with all things. If you currently are going through a self-love body journey, which so many of us are, and you're like, I want to love my body, I want to feel good in my body, but you're still eating crap food, not moving your body, you won't connect with your body, you're avoiding feeling your body or coming back into your body, and yet you expect to just wake up one day because you were told it was feminine, to just sit back and receive and wait for it to happen, for it to drop in and be like, I love myself now. And it's like, no, it's a very long journey, and it can be easy, it gets to be easy, but it's also aligned action and decision making. And this is where the high standards come in. When we have high standards, it gets easier to make decisions, and these decisions come from a place of desire and pleasure, because if you've aligned and audited your life to want something that's going to bring you pleasure and happiness and joy and fulfillment, your aligned actions have got to align with that. So that means that your standards have to align with it. And from there, you can only make decisions from a place of pleasure. So I'm seeing this a lot. I've had a few women come to me about they have big decisions to make in their lives right now, and they're feeling a little ungrounded. They don't know what decision to make. They don't know how to go about it. And I've been there, right? I'm going to be the first to put up my hand, as always, to say, like, I've fucking been there. Like, making decisions at particularly certain times of the month is just like a no-go for me. But also, like, when I'm caught up between a place of fear and expansion as well, like when I know there's an expansion coming, we go into what we call contraction. So if you think of like a birth, to birth that baby out of the womb space, out of the vagina, out of the vulva, we need expansion and contraction of the vaginal canal, right? So it contracts, a contraction, and then it expands to let the baby through. It contracts and then it expands, right? That is the circle of life. We have contraction and fear before something big is about to happen. And it's about how you show up and how you make the decision to move forward. So I have made a dramatically large decision in the last few days. It came from auditing my life, and I'm going to be very transparent here. A lot of people already know, but I still work in the corporate world. And while I still work in the corporate world, that was a choice when I decided to become part-time. I became internal, and I decided I would do this because at the time, my nervous system was not prepared for me to fully step out and not have any form of paycheck. Okay. And when I put in my notice, the company came back and said, hey, we want you to stay with us. We'll take you back part-time. This is what you're going to do. And I was like, that's amazing. That is fine. I'm okay with this. So while that happened, I was like, amazing. And at the time, I actually did enjoy the job I was doing in the space, in the company. It was training, it was fun, it was the stuff I loved doing. And then over the last few months, what I wasn't admitting to myself was the fact that I have now grown to not be happy, is the only way I can put that. And it's been since probably February that it really has taken its toll. It was taking its toll already, but I really found that the more I showed up in that business and felt like I wasn't going to receive any form of reward for the work I was doing, it became harder and harder and harder. And for a while I tried to focus on, well, it's a paycheck. It's a paycheck, it's a consistent income, where the business right now isn't fully taken off. And it's doing well, I'm really happy with it, and I want to grow sustainably. However, it is not fully nourishing me as of yet. And that's okay. But I continue to stay in this role because of that, and because I was like, you know what, I know what I'm doing here. It's at this point it's a copy and paste job. Like, I know I'm bored, I know it's an extra stress that I don't need. And it became more and more frustrating and apparent that I no longer wanted to be there. And over the last few weeks, I went to them about getting an increase, and not because the business wasn't taking in enough money. It was, I actually had to really sit with it, and I was like, even if my business was making 10k months, the sheer amount of work I'm doing in this company, right, where I take 3 days out of my week of my own business to be in theirs, I deserve a lot more money on what I'm being paid, like a lot more. And I was like, I'm done with the bare minimum. I'm done with receiving the bare minimum and then over providing. And I went to them and they came back with a no. So I have made the decision that I will be leaving that company sooner rather than later. And the reason is because I have to make that decision for myself. I cannot spend 3 days of my week in an energy where I don't feel good. It would be very different if this job that I was doing 3 days a week was filling me up. If it was making me feel good, that would then generate into my business throughout the other 4 days of the week. Like, of course, it wouldn't even be a second guess. Like, I'd be like, I'm staying because I'm enjoying it for now. I'm not. And it is very hard to show up 3 days a week in something when you know the thing that you truly want to show up in and love is sitting on a laptop or in a phone next to you, or being online with my clients, or being out in the community. And I can't right now do that. And it's not worth my health, the burnout, it's not worth it. And this decision has been really difficult for me to make, in terms of there is a lot of fear there. There's a lot of fear. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know where my business is going to go in the next few months. I don't know what's about to happen. I don't know what work I'm going to come back with. And I've really had to just sit in it and go, this is the contraction before my expansion. And making this decision has had to come from a true space of understanding that this is for my alignment, it's for my own pleasure. And like, fuck it, if I had to take up a barista job, at least I would be happy in it, right? You know, that's kind of how I felt about it. Like, it's very much this thing of like, it's because it's no longer bringing me joy, it's no longer bringing me happiness. I cannot sit in this any longer because it's draining my life force energy, and the paycheck that goes with it is just not, it's not anyway in comparison. And this doesn't mean that everybody who listens to this podcast has to leave their corporate job. But what I will say is, if your job is not bringing you fulfillment, regardless of the fucking pay packet you are receiving, personally, for anybody in my life, I would rather you were receiving a lesser paycheck and had to cut back on some of your fucking expenses, then, and be in a happy job, a job that made you happy, than being one that's making you totally miserable because the paycheck is good. That is the thing that I had to come up against. And I came up against it all those years ago when COVID happened and when I decided to take a leap of faith into my business, because I was sitting in a role where I was like, I did law. No matter where you do law, anywhere, until you're a certain caliber, and even then, there's a part of you that sells your soul. And I really had to face off with, is my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health, and who I am enough to give up for this money, for this role, for this job, even when I was in law. And that's when I really turned to myself and I was like, no, this isn't what I want to do long term. It doesn't align with how I want to live my life later on in life. I'm not here to work until I'm 65 and then retire. I am here to show up, to call in abundance in every single way that it's available. And then from there, have a beautiful life, but also have an incredibly powerful business. And this is something I've been really scared to speak about, because I'm seeing a lot of it online where people are talking about how their businesses aren't doing well, or that they can't seem to get clients, and then they go missing for weeks on end. And it's like, you are not committed to showing up for yourself, let alone your clients, let alone your audience, let alone warming yourself up. Now, I am not a business coach. This is not where I'm going with this, but it's the same thing in work. If it's not bringing you joy and it makes you want to hide every morning that you're waking up to go to work, it makes you ill to think about going in there, you're constantly a nervous wreck, like, is it worth it long term? Is your health worth it? Because to me, the only thing that is ever worth anything is joy. And like, don't get me wrong, there are days my business winds me the fuck up. It's usually the admin shit. Like, I love my clients, they're fine, but it's like the admin-y shit that I just can't do. And right now, that's just where I'm at. My business has not brought in enough capital as of yet for me to expand my team. So there are certain things that I have to do myself. And yeah, I'd rather not, but I have got to take aligned action to keep up that momentum. It is the same in your health journey, in your body love journey, in your spiritual awakening, in the coming home to your body journey, in your own career, if you have a big career that you want, if you're creating a family. Like, could you imagine if mothers just stopped doing everything and just went, oh, God will provide you with it. Just sit back and receive. Like, nothing would get done. Kids wouldn't be washed, kids wouldn't be dressed, kids wouldn't go to bed, kids wouldn't be fed. And I know, of course, they have dads as well. And I mean this too. What if the men stepped back and went, I'm just going to sit here and receive? Like, it doesn't operate like that fully. We have got to create the containers for that to happen. So that's kind of where my journey has been at recently. And what I want to really leave you with is taking a few moments, whether it's half an hour, whether it's an hour, to sit with yourself and go, right, I'm going to audit my life. I'm going to audit every part of my life. Audit your house, or audit your room. And really be honest with yourself. What is the bare minimum you are willing to accept? And that was the other thing with my role, was that I had a bare minimum and they couldn't hit it. And my thing is, that's okay, that's not their fault, but that's my bare minimum. And I've raised my standards of who I am. I no longer work where I do not feel valued, even though I'm very aware of my worth and my enoughness and my deservingness, and I value me. But that doesn't mean I should stay in spaces that are too small for me, because that's what they are. And that might sound really up my own, but that's how I've raised my standards. I've raised my standards to realize that I don't have to continue doing this just for a paycheck. And yes, I'm putting it out there to be supported divinely by the universe through my business. I have created the container of my business for the universe to support me through it. And that's what I'm calling in. I am being very intentional with where my energy is going now. And it all came from that clarification of looking at where my life was at and where I was going and who I want to be in 6 months, and saying that doesn't align, that's no longer for me, it no longer brings me pleasure, that has got to go because it's having an impact on X, Y, and Z. Goodbye. So if you want to give this a bit of a go, I would love to hear from you, to hear about what this brought you, to hear about how you feel after it, if it maybe activated you, which is always my favorite thing to do. So my little existential kink there, ladies. And I would love to hear about how you feel around it, and what came up for you, and what did you not realize was going on in your life that you're like, oh my god, I can see this now. Because that's the juice, that's the fun. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me on this episode again, and as always, share with friends, family, colleagues, share on your Instagram. I would love to hear from you, and just really provide support, right? There's so many beautiful women in these spaces, like myself, who provide free content through our podcast, who provide long form content to really help others, because it's not all about money, right? It's not all about the money. But for us, it gives us great pleasure and really helps our businesses if you can share us online and talk about your experience listening to us, 5-star reviews, anything at all that you can help small businesses, because these are for those who really are heart-led leaders. I see it everywhere. So many women are heart-led leaders, and they want to be, and we're trying to show the corporate world that there can be a different way, that it doesn't have to be airy-fairy. It can be very grounded. It can have a masculine container, but it can also have a feminine essence. And that's what we are here for. So yeah, thank you so much, and I will see you all again next week. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the Unbound Woman podcast. I just absolutely love when I receive your feedback, your shares on Instagram, comments letting me know, your DMs, your emails, saying how much you've enjoyed this episode or just the podcast in general. And it really just lights me up and allows me to continue recording and gives women a voice here. I love sharing with you all the beautiful women that I come into contact with to raise their awareness, pass on their message, for you to meet other women in this space. Maybe you resonate with them, maybe you love the message that they have, maybe you for the first time ever heard something and you had like a mic drop or a light bulb moment, and that's what this beautiful podcast is all about. So I would love if you could share this podcast, again, as I said, on Instagram, email me, give me some comments, provide a review, or just simply share it with somebody. Share it with your mum, with your aunts, with your friends, with your colleagues, with whoever you think this will benefit, because the more we spread the word, the better. The more information women can have in their hands for free, because it's their goddamn fucking right, the better. And that's what this podcast is here for, to bring that awareness in all different ways. So thank you once again for just being absolutely fucking amazing, for showing up with me every time I release an episode. And what I would like to offer you is, if you go to my website, www.spiralwithneve.com, I would love if you could sign up for my newsletter, and what you receive is a free Create Your Own Pleasure Practice Guide. This beautiful guide was created by me on how to create your own daily ritual or pleasure practice, and how to bring pleasure into your life on a more regular basis. Because you know what? You fucking deserve it. You are a queen, you are a goddess, and the time is now. And I send you all my love, and I'll speak to you all next week.